FZRandomizer is a plugin I created a little while ago that allows you to randomize mesh objects based off of shape keys. After listening to your comments on version 1, I decided to get to work on a version 2.0, a total redesign from version 1. The flagship feature of this add-on all revolves around a host collection. That is this right here. And right now it says host is character. So the randomizer revolves around this host collection, but it's driven by sub-collections within the host collection. So if I were to draw this out for you, you'll have a host collection, and then within that host collection, you'll have a bunch of different other collections that will represent all of the attributes for the thing you're trying to randomize. So say this is your character, you can have shirts, hats. So this could look like a hierarchy of a typical object you want to randomize. This here indicates our host collection. Again, the collection that everything revolves around in the randomizer. All of these here would be our sub-collections, collections within our host collection that help make decisions for each random variant that we're going to generate. You also have what's called a root object. And root objects, you don't define them anywhere, but you'll put a root object directly inside of your host collection. So maybe this is the base mesh. This is where you'll put your material library. Or maybe a second one if you have two, which I found myself using multiple material libraries. This is where you also might put a lattice, which we'll talk about later. So your full host collection would look something like this. A collection that contains sub-collections for randomization, as well as other root objects. And the thing about these root objects, every object that lives inside the host collection will go to every single variant. So every variant in this case is going to have a base. It's going to have material library 1 and 2 and a lattice. Maybe there's 7 shirts. Maybe there's 5 hats. Maybe there's 2 shoes. Maybe there's 6 glasses or 10 pieces of jewelry. It's going to pick one from here, one from here, one from here, one from here, one from here. And all of those will go to make up a variant. Okay, so have you ever gone hiking and you saw the little rock formation in the woods? That's called a cairn. I actually learned that recently. I thought it was called Cairn. Everyone's saying, "Oh, there's the cairn." I was like, "Cairn? What?" No, it's Cairn. It's pronounced C-A-I-R-N. That's a cairn. Anyway, we're gonna make a cairn. A cairn is a perfect thing that we can randomize. And let's take a look at our chart that we made. Okay, so here's our chart. Now, it kind of works out that I have bad handwriting because this kind of already looks like the word Cairn anyway. So if this is our cairn, our host collection here, what are our sub-collections going to be? Well, in this case, I used 4 sub-collections. And let's take a look at them. We have the bottom rock, we have the bottom middle rock, the top middle rock, and the top rock. Here's an example of a cairn, right? We can have a couple variations of the bottom rock, a couple variations of the middle rock, a couple variations of the top middle rock, and a couple variations of the top. And that's exactly what I did. I have them hidden right now. But if you look through the bottom, I have, we'll pull this over here, just a couple variations here. Each one slightly different, but still round. And each one is going to be slightly different. The same with the bottom middle, same with the top middle, and same with the top. There's 4 variations for each. Say I want to make X amount of unique cairns. Well, I have a button for that right here. I can check this box, and that's going to mean whenever I generate them, each cairn I generate is going to be totally unique from the previous one. Say I wanted to generate a ton of cairns. Just I'm populating a woods scene. I want to make something. I want to make a bunch of unique cairns. And let's say I want to have 500 cairns for the woods. I can type 500 in my variants, and I'll go to generate them, and it's going to give me a warning. Well, there's not enough variation for 500 unique generations. I have 4 top pieces, 4 top middles, 4 bottom middles, and 4 bottoms. Well, that's 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. So I can pull out my calculator and figure that out. Or I can just run the calculate possibilities button here. And this is going to say 256. Okay, that's 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. This is the maximum amount of possibilities that I can have to do unique. So if I wanted 500 unique generations, I'd have to add a little more detail. Technically speaking, I could go ahead and I can set this, okay, 256, and I could hit generate. just a quick disclaimer, I would always recommend you add more variation before you just try to generate the exact number of possibilities, because that can be exponentially longer as it searches for the last missing link. And honestly, you'll get more unique looking ones if you just have more generations in general. So I try to stay under 50%. So if I want 500 variants, I really need to get my possibilities probably up to 1,000 or more, and that's really not hard. If, say I were to add another rock at the top, and I would have 4 variants for that, well then it would be 256 times 4. So then we're talking about 1024 variants, and that's already double. So just adding a little bit more variation can increase the possibilities exponentially. This instance checkbox is great too, because it makes the generation process a lot quicker. This comes with a time advantage and also a data advantage for saving on your data, but it doesn't allow you to do things like use any of the shape key tools, which we'll see later. Using instance is very powerful in a lot of cases to generate a lot of things, but also can limit you if you want to use things like the variant scrambler, which is located in the shape key tools. So let's go ahead and run this. Let's say, okay, I want to do 200 unique Cairns with using instances, and I will just go ahead and generate that. And it's going to run that, and they've all been developed, and it spawns a new folder called variants, which each variant is within its own variant folder up here. I suggest that you use your spawn tools anytime you actually want to use and manipulate these variants you create. You have this offset, this world offset, which is basically how far, like think of this like an array, right? We're going to array these across the scene and at what length. So say I were to hit spawn variants, and as you can see here, it put all our variants in a line here, and they're not very far apart. So I will just actually increase the X distance, not 0.1, but maybe just to actually 1, and I will respawn, and looks like we need even more space. So I will go more. Let's do 2. Spawn variants. Now as you can see, we have a different variant. Each one of these cairns is slightly different from the previous one. These are all a unique cairn, a unique stack of rocks, which is really cool. If I do say so myself, that's pretty cool. And what's even cooler is technically there's 4 objects here, but by instancing this thing, you can just grab this as a whole piece, and you can move this whole thing around with one orientation. You can keyframe this thing with rotation, location, scale, all the good stuff, and it's just treated like one object, which is why it's so powerful just to use your spawn tools here just to take care of all this. Okay, so check this out. So this is a fake NFT collection I made called the Baby Blues Whale Club. This is a little demo character I made in probably no more than 30 minutes making these assets. So I'll show you the process here. So I have a body, right? So our host collection is Baby Blues. As we go down here in our randomizer, we can see Baby Blues, and I wanted unique variants, so I had that selected. We have some shirts here for them available. I have a button up. I have an option for no shirt, because if you want no shirt, you need a no shirt option, and that's as simple as making an object. As you can see, the object's over here, and I'll call it no shirt. And I will go into edit mode here, and I will delete all the mesh data in it. And now it's just an object with no mesh in it. Basically, it selected something with nothing in it, effectively being no shirt. That's just an easy way to get a little extra variation out of something. So I do that often, is I'll have something with no shirt or no something else, you know. I have just this other shirt here. You know, nothing special, nothing crazy. I have a little tank for my little whale to wear. Isn't that kind of cute? I also gave him some piercings, thought that was kind of funny. I have an assortment of glasses for my character, as well as an assortment of things to put on the wrist, an assortment of hats. I have some masks available for the character, just a couple different ones, some are around the neck. So we can open up this advanced material options here, and we have some material options in here. We have what's called a link mat group. Now, I defined a link mat group as a group of objects that all need to share a single material. So think of it like any grouping of objects that need to share one material, despite getting thrown a bunch of random materials, we'll all sort of agree upon one material and be that material. So say you randomize a character's beard, a character's hair, a character's eyebrow shape. Those are 3 different objects, but you can put them all in the same link material group. So you can put them all in, say, link mat 1, and that can be dedicated to all things hair. So it'll pick 3 random pieces of hair, and you can set them to all be link mat 1, and then at the end of that variation, it's going to go into the material library for link mat 1, and it will select a hair color to assign to all of those. So that's just one example, but there's many applications for this. So if you want to make a material library, any material library is assigned and referred to as any object that has matlib at the beginning of the name. It's the same as those objects I said that are like no shirt or no glasses. It's literally just an object that, say I make a plane here, and then I will go into edit mode and I will delete all the mesh data within it. I can just change this to matlib underscore, and it doesn't even have to have an underscore. I like to do that for personal naming convention. I think it helps you understand what's there. But say this can be a hair material. So matlib hair. Okay, cool. So now we have a material library that's going to define our hair. And again, the second part is more just for you. The computer doesn't care what's after matlib, but it does care what link mat group it is. So you can say, well, we've already used link mat 0, 1, 2, and 3. Let's use link mat 4. So I will just change that to link mat 4, and I'll hit set link mat. This works on multiple objects at the same time. So rather than naming each individual one, I can just select all of them, and I can assign these all to link mat 4 or link mat 5, and it'll change them. It's like, whoops, this is link mat 5. It needs to be 4. I can either remove the link mat, which will do that. It'll just take it all away, or I can set the link mat there, and you can change the link mat even though it already has one on there, just like that. But we'll go back to link mat 4. But I'm going to delete all these objects, as we don't need any of those. And I have no hair on this character, so I'm going to delete that as well. But that's how you would set up a material library, or a matlib, as I like to call. As you can see, I have a matlib set up for metals, for some cloth materials, and anything that has a matlib on it. So for example, these hats. All the hats are set to be link mats. The link mat only affects material slot number 1, which means right here, it'll only change this one. So you can have an object with multiple materials on it. Like for example, this hat, it has to have a gold latch and a black belt around it, which is materials 2 and 3, but material 1 will be the one set to change. So this will always alter. This can alter to be any color it needed to be, and it will change that based on the link mat assigned. Very important note here. To set a link mat to be changed, you have to set what's called the material slot link to be object and not mesh. And you have a material link. And many people don't touch this, but this is saying, how's the material attached to this object? And currently it's attached to the mesh. And we don't want that. We actually need to change this to object and not data. And it will look like this first one. You'll have this icon here. You just have to make sure that is set to object and not data. Otherwise it will not link a material in. But I have all of these pieces all stacked on the same character here. And since the body is also set for a link mat, it's link mat 0. So the body is going to look for any material in link mat 1 material, or link mat 0's material library, and it has all these to choose from. So that's using the material options there, the link mats. Now once you have pretty complex characters, you can see, as I talked about earlier, let me recalculate these possibilities. You know, we have over, what is that? Over 1 million, 1.3 million possibilities. Just for a character of, you know, 4, 7, 7, 4, 9, 3, 9, 7. You know, the possibilities stack up pretty quick, exponentially quick, as a matter of fact, and you can see how it's really easy to hit that threshold. It will take your computer a long time to build all these. So I really recommend, if you have a collection of hundreds, or especially of thousands of pieces you need to generate, one, I would caution when using anything over 1,000 generates, because it can really start to take a lot of time to build these. But that's not to say you can't do it. You totally can. It just will take a long time, and sometimes can slow down your computer and Blender even. While you're in the process of making it, I would keep this variance number super low, like 15, just so it has not a lot to generate. That way, whenever you do generate, hit generate, it's going to run the process, and it's already done. I'm going to set this for 2, so that way it has 2, and I'll just spawn my variance. And here is my spawns. Let's look through some of these. Here's my variations of the Baby Blue Whales Club. Baby Blues Whale Club. Right? So each one is a unique variant. And it will use some of the same materials, but look how it generated a hat with a different color, and I like that color for that hat. That's very interesting. And that's the Baby Blues Whale Club. Now, one cool feature I also included was this queue for batch render. So once you spawn all of your characters here, all of your generations, you can queue them to render at the same time, which a lot of people ask for, because yeah, sweet, dude, it's cool to like make all these, but how am I going to render out 1,000 variations? First thing you want to do is make sure you're spawning them all in the same place. So I'll set this to 0. So that way it's 0, 0, 0. They're all going to spawn in the very center. So if I go back to the beginning here, and I just spawn my variants, okay, I have 15 variants spawned. And again, you don't want to be selecting anything up here. I'm just going to turn this off. You can easily move one full variant and all of the objects move with it, which is really cool. But you have this queue for batch render. And what this does is it checks to see how many variants did you make. Okay, we have 15, so we're going to set the scene length for 15 frames, and then we're going to set each of those to render on a different frame at the click of a button. Bam, it's done. Right here, 15 frames. If I were to look through the camera, they're all right here. You can just hit Control F12 or render animation under the render tab. But Control F12 will get the job done. And it's just going to go through each one and render each different variation frame by frame. And I'm doing this in Eevee, so it's going pretty quick, but it's also supported in cycles. And I recommend doing the time if you can, because cycles looks sweet. So then you say, all right, I'm liking how this looks. I'm ready to do it for real. I need to kick out 500 variants for this NFT collection we're doing. You can just change this number to 500 as long as the possibilities are there. So clearly we're good to hit that mark. And then you just hit generate and it will totally reset all those. You will then have to re-queue for batch render, but that's just one button you push. So I want to show you one last use case here for this plugin. It's not all about characters. You can randomize any mesh you want to using this, which is the cool part. What are we randomizing? What's our host collection? Books. We're making some books. All right, that's really what this should be called. Your host should be called the thing you're generating, and that's books. And what are some sub-collections we have in here? Well, we have a sub-collection called bindings. We're looking back here at these guys back here, and we have a couple different bindings. Turn these off for now. I have this first binding that looks like that. I have another binding that looks like that, just a little more round. And I have a binding that's actually no binding. It's just a flat back book. I have these frames here. And really, these are just a series of those fancy looking borders on the books. As you can see here, each one has got their own thing going on, a little shape, just something to give it some variation. And I just have books. I have only 2 books here. I have one that's just a hard corner book. The other's rounded edge book here. How this one's a little different is we've also included a lattice. Here's what's cool. Everything's applied to this lattice, right? Everything has, if I click on it, in my modifiers, I have a lattice stack in here that the object is this lattice. And if I were to go into edit mode for this lattice, I can just grab some of these vertices and start moving them around. And you see how it actually affects all the mesh pieces. They all move collectively, almost like it's a corner pin in After Effects. And I love that. But what I love even more is that lattice supports shape keys the same way a mesh does. So I made a shape key for the height of this lattice, or I made a shape key for the depth of this book. How thick is this book going to be? Or also, how wide is this book going to be? But check it out, right? Like, you have these different shape keys, and those can be used in conjunction with the book. So let's go make some variants, right? So we have our books as a host collection. Say I want 115 books. Sure, that's cool. I don't need them to be unique. So let me just go ahead and generate 115 instances, and I'm instancing these, 115 instances of the book, and it's already done on the click of a button. Using instances can make it very quick. And now we'll just spawn those variants, and each one has a different material, which I forgot to mention is because inside our host collection, I have a material library, like you saw before, of book covers, as well as a material library for the metals that represent the metals that would go on the front of these books. Here we have the shape key tools, which are what was originally presented in the first randomizer. Now those are still very useful if you want to use a lot of the original tools. However, or any object that contains shape key data, if you use the variant scrambler, it's just going to easily scramble all of the shape keys in all of the variants. So let's see what happens when I hit this button. Oh, it gave us a random shape key. Now, you're wondering, oh, they all look the same. And yeah, they all are the same because we're instancing. Remember, there's pros and cons with the instance. You can do really quick generations with this. However, it takes away the ability to alter them. This is all one instance. We're basically just doing a shape key scrambler on one instance of an object. So let's just redo this. I'll take instance off, and I will just keep auto spawn on because we already like where everything's at. All right, so we regenerated all those, and now what's cool is these aren't actually instances anymore. They're all their own duplicated object, which means if we were to use the variant scrambler, bam, bam. Let's turn this off for effect. Go to render view. Every time I do a variant scrambler, we're going to get a different variation of book shape and size. All these books here can just change at a click of a button. So there's still some stuff I actually didn't cover with this add-on. There is a good bit it can do, and you actually, for the most part, have seen everything. Still working on it, still putting out some updates for it as it goes, as I see things that need to be fixed with it. But this is totally workable and usable and downloadable to you. You can go get it right now. So let me know in the comments if you downloaded the plugin, if you've been playing with it, what you think of it, any ideas going forward for maybe how to enhance it or little things that could be tweaked on it. If you haven't already, follow me on Instagram at lgard53, LGARD53. Send me your work that you make with this. I love seeing the stuff you guys make. Tag me in it, drop me in a comment. Till next time.